They sacrificed her to a monster because she was too quiet to matter. But the Vampire King saw what they missed. She spoke the one language that could break his 300-year curse. In 3 weeks, she went from invisible seamstress to the only woman who could command an immortal army. This is how silence became her weapon. The needle pierced Alara Ashcroft's thumb for the 3rd time that morning. A bead of crimson swelled against her pale skin. She watched it, transfixed, as it trembled in the lamplight of the Ashford Library's back room. The blood was darker than she expected. Richer, like the wine served at Lord Blackwood's table, where she would never sit. She pressed her thumb to the hem of Lady Cordelia's wedding gown. The stain disappeared into layers of imported ivory silk, invisible, like everything else about her. 20 years old, and Alara had perfected the art of being unseen. She moved through Ashford Village like a ghost, mending the torn seams of the wealthy, reshelving books no one else bothered to read. The villagers knew her face the way they knew the stones in the road. Present, unremarkable, easily forgotten. But Theron Blackwood had noticed her, or so she'd believed for 18 months. The memory surfaced unbidden. Last autumn's harvest festival, Theron finding her behind the library, reading by candlelight while the village danced. His smile had been sunlight breaking through storm clouds. Why hide back here, Alara? I'm not hiding, I'm reading. You're always reading. He'd sat beside her too close, his shoulder brushing hers. Don't you want to dance? To be seen? Being seen has never done me any favors. He'd taken the book from her hands, closed it gently. Then let me see you, just me. She should have recognized the hunger in his eyes, not for her, for what she represented. A girl so quiet, so unnoticed, that no one would question when she disappeared. The clock in the main library struck 9. Alara's hands moved automatically, gathering Lady Cordelia's gown, folding it with practiced precision. 3 more alterations waited: the Whitmore daughter's riding coat, Elder Ashton's ceremonial robes, a christening dress for a baby she'd never meet. She was reaching for the riding coat when the door opened. Theron Blackwood stood in the threshold. 25 years old, broad-shouldered, golden-haired, the kind of handsome that opened doors, that made fathers overlook gambling debts and mothers forget their daughters' dowries. He wore his confidence like armor, polished and impenetrable. Alara's heart betrayed her. It always did. One look at him and she forgot every warning sign. Every moment his eyes had gone cold when she asked about their future. Theron, she set down the coat. I wasn't expecting you. It's Tuesday. You have council prep. The council meeting's been moved. He closed the door behind him, locked it. The click echoed in the small room. To tonight, emergency session. Oh, Alara smoothed her apron, gray, worn thin at the edges. She'd sewn it herself from scraps. Is everything all right? No, He crossed to her in 3 strides, took her hands in his. They were cold. Alara, I need you to trust me. Her pulse quickened. Of course I trust you. The blood moon is coming. 2 days from now. Everyone knew about the blood moon. It arrived every 10 years like clockwork, painting the sky the color of rust and iron, and with it came the choosing. One person from Ashford offered to the Shadow Vale King as tribute, a barbaric tradition that had kept their village safe for 3 centuries. They'll pick someone from the lower district, Alara said. What she didn't say, someone like me. They always do. The council's changed the rules. Theron's grip tightened. They want a volunteer, someone willing. They believe it will strengthen the protection. That's ridiculous. No one volunteers to die. You'd be surprised what people do when they're desperate. He released her hands, turned away. My father lost his council seat last month. The gambling scandal. You heard about it. Alara had heard. Lord Blackwood, caught fixing card games at the Crimson Moon Tavern. The shame had rippled through Ashford's elite like a stone through still water. Theron, I'm sorry. I know how much that hurt. I can get it back. He spun to face her. His seat. I can reclaim it, restore our family's honor. But I need... He trailed off, looked at her the way a merchant looks at inventory. And Alara understood. The needle prick on her thumb began to throb. The blood had dried, but the wound remained. She felt it with every heartbeat. You need a volunteer, she whispered. I need you. He closed the distance between them, cupped her face in his hands. Alara, listen to me. This is bigger than us. The council will grant my family redemption if I bring them a willing tribute, someone noble, someone who chooses service over self. You want me to die for your council seat? No, God, no. He pressed his forehead to hers. His breath smelled of whiskey and desperation. I want you to live. The Shadowvale King hasn't killed a tribute in 80 years. He just keeps them. In his castle, you'd be safe. Safer than here, working yourself to exhaustion for scraps. Alara pulled back, studied his face. The face she'd memorized. The jawline she'd traced with her fingertips in the dark corners of the library. The mouth that had promised her forever in 1,000 whispered words. You told me you loved me. I do love you. You told me we'd marry after you secured your position. And we will. His smile was bright, blinding. Once I'm on the council, I'll have power, resources. I can petition the Shadowvale King for your return. Bride rights, ancient law. You'd come home, Alara. We'd have the life we planned, but first you have to trust me. The walls of the library seemed to close in. Alara looked at the wedding gown draped over the chair. Lady Cordelia's gown, a girl 2 years younger than her, marrying for love and land and a future that sparkled like the diamonds in her tiara. Alara would never wear a gown like that. What if I say no? Theron's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes went flat. The council needs a volunteer by tomorrow. If no one steps forward, they'll draft someone. A lottery. And you know how lotteries work in Ashford. She did know. The names in the bowl were never random. The poor, the forgotten, those no one would miss. Girls exactly like her. At least this way, Theron continued, you choose. You matter. Everyone will know your sacrifice. Your name will be remembered. My name is never remembered. Then make them remember. He kissed her forehead, gentle, reverent. Stand before the village tomorrow night. Tell them you volunteer. Give Ashford hope. Give us a future. He left before she could answer. The door swung shut with a soft click. The lock turned from the outside. Alara stood in the center of the room, surrounded by the clothes of people who would never know her name. Her reflection stared back from the darkened window. Pale skin, brown hair that refused to curl, eyes the color of moss and shadow. Forgettable. She thought about running, but where would she go? She had 3 silver coins to her name. No family, no friends beyond the books that lined the library shelves. And beneath the fear, beneath the betrayal, a terrible understanding bloomed. Theron was right about one thing. She was going to be chosen whether she volunteered or not. At least this way, she could pretend it was her choice. The village square blazed with torchlight. Every resident of Ashford had gathered, dressed in their blood moon finest. Crimson ribbons fluttered from doorways. Children clutched their mothers' skirts, eyes wide with the kind of fear that comes from hearing whispered stories about the monster in the mountains. Alara stood at the edge of the crowd, wearing her only dress that wasn't stained with thread and tears. Gray wool, serviceable, the kind of dress that wouldn't be missed. Theron stood on the platform beside the council elders. He hadn't looked at her once. Elder Ashton raised his hands. The crowd fell silent. Citizens of Ashford, the blood moon rises tomorrow at dusk. For 300 years, we have honored our pact with the Shadowvale King. One soul offered freely in exchange for his protection from the darkness beyond our borders. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Mothers pulled their children closer. This year, Elder Ashton continued, the council has decided that our offering must be willing. A volunteer. Someone who understands the nobility of sacrifice. More murmurs, louder now, fearful. Do we have such a person among us? Silence. Alara's heart hammered against her ribs. Her palms were slick with sweat. She could still run, disappear into the crowd. Let the lottery decide. But then she saw him, Theron, looking directly at her now, his expression carefully neutral. But his eyes held a message. Do it. Prove you love me. Give me my future. Alara's feet carried her forward before her mind could catch up. The crowd parted. Whispers followed her like smoke. Is that the library girl? The seamstress? Who is she? She climbed the platform steps. Her legs felt distant, disconnected. Elder Ashton stared at her as if seeing her for the first time. Your name, child? Alara Ashcroft. And you volunteer as tribute? The words caught in her throat. She looked at Theron. He nodded, encouraging, proud. I volunteer. The crowd erupted, not in protest, in relief. Someone else's daughter, someone else's sister, someone who didn't matter enough to mourn. Elder Ashton placed a hand on her shoulder. Your sacrifice honors us all. Ashford will remember your name. Liar, Alara thought. You'll forget me before the moon sets. But Theron stepped forward, took her hand, raised it high. Citizens of Ashford, behold Alara Ashcroft, my betrothed. His voice rang across the square. She has agreed to serve our village, to protect our children, to ensure our future. She goes not as a sacrifice, but as our champion." The crowd roared its approval. Alara felt nothing, not the warmth of Theron's hand, not the weight of 100 grateful stares, nothing but the cold certainty that she'd just signed her own death warrant, and the man she loved had held the pen. The Thornstone altar sat in the heart of Blackthorn Forest, 3 miles from the village proper. Ancient, weathered, carved from a single piece of obsidian that drank the moonlight and gave nothing back. Ilara had seen it once as a child. Her mother had brought her to the forest's edge, pointed to the dark stone rising from the mist. "That's where the tributes go," her mother had whispered. "That's where the Shadowvale King collects his due." "What happens to them?" young Ilara had asked. Her mother's face had gone gray. "They disappear, and we don't ask where." Now, 18 years later, Ilara stood at the forest's edge again. But this time, she wouldn't turn back. Theron walked beside her, silent. He'd barely spoken since they left the village. The council elders followed at a distance, chanting old words in a language Ilara didn't recognize. The forest closed around them like a fist. Blackthorn trees rose on all sides, their branches twisted into shapes that hurt to look at. The air tasted of copper and rotting leaves. No birds sang, no insects hummed. Even the wind seemed afraid to move here. They reached the altar as the moon crested the mountains. Blood red, just like the stories promised. Alara's breath came in short, sharp gasps. The cold was immediate, invasive. It crept up from the frozen ground, wrapped around her ankles, climbed her legs like living ice. "Lie down." Elder Ashton's voice was gentle, almost apologetic. "On your back, arms at your sides." She obeyed. The obsidian was smooth, impossibly cold. It leached the warmth from her body in seconds. Theron knelt beside the altar. For a moment, hope flickered. He'd changed his mind. He'd save her. Then he pulled rope from his coat pocket. "I'm sorry," he whispered, low enough that only she could hear. "But this has to look real. The Shadowvale King can sense deception." He bound her wrist. The rope bit into her skin. Coarse, unforgiving. These were the same hands that had held hers during last summer's festival. The same hands that had traced her collarbone in the dark, promising forever. "Theron," her voice cracked. "Please." "Shh, it's better this way." He tied the final knot, stood. "You were never going to fit into my world, Ilara. You're too quiet, too small, too nothing. Better the girl who never spoke than a man with a future." The words hit harder than any physical blow. "I loved you. You loved the idea of being loved." He stepped back, addressed the elders. "The offering is prepared." Elder Ashton anointed Alara's forehead with oil that smelled of myrrh and ash, muttered words she couldn't understand. The other elders formed a circle around the altar, their chanting rising and falling like a funeral dirge. And then they left. All of them. Theron didn't look back. The torches receded through the trees. The chanting faded. Soon the only sound was Alara's ragged breathing and the wind moving through dead branches. She was alone, truly completely alone. The cold worked its way deeper. Her fingers went numb first, then her toes. The numbness crawled up her arms, settled in her chest. Each breath became a struggle, each heartbeat an effort. She thought about screaming. But who would hear? Who would care? The girl who never spoke. That's what Theron had called her. He was right. She'd spent 20 years being quiet, hoping that if she didn't take up space, didn't demand attention, someone might notice her anyway, might see value in her silence. But silence wasn't valued. It was convenient, and convenience could be sacrificed without guilt. Ilara closed her eyes. Let the cold take her. Maybe it was better this way. Better to freeze than to wake up in whatever hell waited beyond the veil. The temperature dropped another 10 degrees. The air itself seemed to crystallize. And then she heard it. Footsteps. Not the frantic scramble of an animal. Heavy, deliberate, terrifyingly calm. Ilara's eyes snapped open. A figure emerged from the mist. Tall, impossibly tall, draped in shadows that moved independently of his body. He wore armor the color of a bruised sky, etched with symbols that seemed to writhe in the moonlight. A cloak of black fur trailed behind him, untouched by the frost that coated everything else. But it was his face that stopped her heart. Sharp, carved from marble and cruelty, cheekbones that could cut glass, a mouth that had forgotten how to smile, and his eyes, silver, not gray, not pale blue, true silver, luminescent, like twin moons trapped in a storm. Lucian Nightshade, the Shadow Veil King, looked down at her. He didn't look like a monster. He looked like a god who'd been forgotten by his worshippers. Pathetic. His voice was low, resonant. It vibrated through the frozen ground, through the altar, through Alara's bones. This is what they offer me now, a girl left to freeze on stone. He circled the altar, studying her the way a scholar studies an insect pinned to a board. Let me guess, he continued. Someone you loved tied these knots. Someone you trusted told you this was noble. Someone you believed promised you'd matter. Alara's throat was too tight to answer. She could only stare. He left you. It wasn't a question. Lucian's gaze flicked to the path where Theron had disappeared. The man with the shallow heart. He thought your blood would pay his debts. Your silence would buy his future. A blade appeared in Lucian's hand. Obsidian, darker than the altar. Alara flinched, bracing for the strike. But he cut the ropes. The pressure released. Her arms fell to her sides. Blood rushed back into her hands, burning as circulation returned. Go. Lucian stepped back. His expression remained impassive. Run back to your village. Perhaps you can catch him before he celebrates. Alara tried to sit up. Her body refused. The cold had progressed too far. Her legs were useless. She collapsed back onto the stone, vision blurring at the edges. I can't. The words came out as a whisper. There's nowhere to go. Then you'll die here. He sheathed the blade, turned to leave. The wolves will have you by dawn. Good, Alara's voice surprised her, stronger now, bitter. I'm already dead. He killed the girl I was. Do whatever you want. Lucian stopped, turned back. For the first time, genuine emotion crossed his face. Curiosity. He stared at her for a long moment. Then he did something the legends never mentioned. He knelt, slid one arm beneath her knees, the other behind her back, lifted her as if she weighed no more than a handful of winter leaves. His chest was solid. Cold, yes, but not the invasive cold of the altar. This was the cold of mountain stone, ancient, permanent, strangely steady. Then let us see, he murmured against her ear, his breath like frost on glass, if the king of the dead can find you a reason to live. He stepped into the darkness. The world dissolved into swirls of shadow and snow. Alara drifted in and out of consciousness. She felt movement, not the jarring bounce of a carriage, but something fluid, predatory, like being carried by smoke given form. Occasionally she caught glimpses, mountains rising like teeth against the blood-red moon, a bridge of bones spanning a chasm filled with mist, gates of iron that opened without touch, groaning like something dying, and always the steady rhythm of a heartbeat, slower than human, deeper, like the pulse of the earth itself. When she finally opened her eyes, the ceiling above her was a cathedral of carved stone. Massive ribs of obsidian arched overhead, glowing with faint blue bioluminescent moss. The light was ethereal, dreamlike, as if she'd fallen into the belly of some great sleeping beast. The bed beneath her was vast, draped in furs softer than anything she'd ever touched. The mattress seemed to cradle her, warm despite the stone walls. She tried to sit up. Pain flared in her chest. Easy, child of the sun. A woman sat in a high-backed chair near the fireplace. Young, or at least she appeared young, perhaps mid-20s, but her eyes held the exhaustion of centuries. She wore a gown of deep emerald, and her skin was the color of old parchment. Beautiful, but in the way that ancient paintings are beautiful. Perfectly preserved, slightly unreal. Who are you? Alara's voice was a dry rasp. I am Isolde Nightshade. The woman rose with fluid grace. Healer of Obsidian Keep, and you are the first living thing to cross this threshold in 80 years. Isolde approached the bed, offered a silver goblet. Drink. Honey, willow bark, and a drop of my brother's vintage. It will mend what the frost broke. Brother, the word registered slowly through Alara's fog of pain. Lucian is your brother? He is? Isolde's expression softened. Though we haven't been truly siblings in 300 years. Not since the plague. Not since he made the choice that saved my life and cursed his soul. Alara took the goblet. The liquid inside was amber, viscous, smelling of summer meadows and something darker, metallic. She hesitated. If I wanted you dead, Isolde said gently, I would have let you freeze on the altar. Drink. The first sip was sweet, spicy. It sent a wave of heat through Alara's limbs, melting the ice that had settled in her marrow. She drained the goblet. Where am I? Obsidian Keep, the heart of the Shadow Veil. My brother's domain. Isolde returned to her chair. You're fortunate he brought you here. Most tributes he leaves to the forest, but you said something that intrigued him. I told him I was already dead. Precisely. Isolde smiled. It didn't reach her eyes. My brother has lived 3 centuries surrounded by people terrified of death. You embraced it. That made you interesting. Ilara looked around the room. Really looked. The chamber was enormous. Tapestries hung on the walls, depicting stars she didn't recognize. A balcony opened onto darkness, curtains billowing in a wind that smelled of snow and pine. What happens now? Now you heal. Rest. When you're strong enough, you'll meet the court. Isolde's expression darkened. I should warn you. Not everyone will be pleased by your presence. Ravenna Crimson in particular believes tributes should be treated as currency, not guests. Ravenna? The High Lady. My brother's, Isolde paused, former companion. She does not appreciate charity, especially when it comes in the form of a mortal girl. The way she said mortal made Alara's skin prickle. You're vampires. We are. Then why didn't Lucian just drink me? Kill me? Isn't that what vampires do? Isolde stood, walked to the window, stared out at the darkness beyond. My brother stopped drinking from tributes 80 years ago. After the last one, a boy from the northern villages. Lucian tried to be gentle, to make it quick. But the boy fought, screamed, begged. She turned back to Alara. Her eyes were wet. Lucian heard every word, felt every terror. And when it was over, when the boy's heart finally stopped, my brother swore he would never feed on fear again. He survives on animal blood now. Deer, wolves, creatures that don't beg. Alara's chest tightened. She thought of Theron, his careless cruelty, the way he'd tied the ropes without flinching. Your brother showed me more mercy than my own betrothed. Men often do. Isolde's smile was sad. Rest now. Tomorrow, if you're well enough, I'll show you the conservatory. There are things growing there that you should see. She left before Alara could ask what she meant. Alone in the massive chamber, Alara sank back into the furs. Sleep pulled at her, heavy and irresistible. But just before she surrendered, a thought crystallized. She was alive. Against all odds, all logic, all expectation, she was alive. And for the first time in 20 years, someone had chosen to save her instead of sacrifice her. Morning didn't exist in Obsidian Keep. Instead, the bioluminescent moss shifted colors, from deep midnight indigo to soft pearlescent violet, a gradual transition that marked the passage of time without the sun's harsh truth. Alara woke to find a tray beside her bed. Bread, cheese, fruit that smelled of summer orchards. A note in elegant script. Eat. You'll need your strength. She ate mechanically, barely tasting the food. Her mind was elsewhere, trying to process, to understand. She was in a vampire's castle. She'd been saved by a monster. And somehow, impossibly, she felt safer here than she ever had in Ashford. A knock at the door. Come in. Isolde entered, carrying a bundle of fabric. I brought you proper clothes. That dress has seen better centuries. Alara looked down at her gray wool, stained now with dirt and blood. The hem torn from being dragged across stone. I don't have anything else. You do now. Isolde laid the bundle on the bed, a gown of deep forest green. Simple, elegant, with an embroidered collar that depicted silver thorns and midnight roses. It's beautiful. It's practical. Isolde turned away while Alara changed. The conservatory gets cold. You'll need layers. The gown fit perfectly. The fabric was soft, well-made, with enough room to move. Alara ran her hands over the embroidery. Someone had spent hours on this. Someone who cared about details. Come, Isolde said. Before the court wakes, there are people I want you to avoid. They walked through corridors of carved stone. The keep was a labyrinth, twisting passages, staircases that spiraled into darkness, archways that opened onto balconies overlooking a kingdom of eternal winter. Alara glimpsed the world outside through windows of frosted glass. Mountains, endless mountains, peaks covered in snow that glittered like diamonds, forests of black pines stretching to the horizon, and above it all, a sky the color of deep twilight, even though Isolde claimed it was mid-morning. The shadow veil exists between, Isolde explained as they descended a spiral staircase. Not quite night, not quite day, perpetual dusk, it's part of the curse. My brother hasn't seen true sunlight in 300 years. They reached a pair of crystal doors. Isolde pushed them open. Alara's breath caught. The conservatory was impossible, a cavern carved from living crystal. The walls captured distant starlight from somewhere beyond the keep, amplified it, refracted it until the entire space glowed with soft, silver luminescence. Water trickled from stalactites into pools of obsidian dark water. The air was thick, humid, alive with the hum of insects that glowed like embers. And everywhere plants, not the scraggly herbs that grew in Ashford's gardens. These were otherworldly, luminescent, beautiful in ways that hurt to witness. Ghost orchids with petals like translucent silk. Moonvines that climbed the crystal walls, their flowers opening and closing with the rhythm of a heartbeat. And in the center, on a raised dais of moss-covered stone, a single flower, frost lily. It was closed tight, petals furled against the cold. Its leaves were silver-veined, delicate as a dragonfly's wing. It hasn't bloomed in 80 years, Isolde whispered. Not since the last tribute, the one who screamed. She led Alar to the dais, gestured for her to kneel. Place your hand on the stem, gently. Don't force it. Just listen. Alara knelt. The moss was soft beneath her knees, cool and damp. She extended her hand, hesitated. What if I heard it? You won't. Isolde's voice held strange certainty. Trust me. Alara placed her palm against the stem. The flower was impossibly cold. It should have felt dead, frozen solid. But beneath the cold, she felt something else. A pulse, faint, rhythmic, like a heartbeat buried deep underground. She closed her eyes, let herself feel it. That slow, patient ache, that secret kept for centuries. And without thinking, without planning, she began to hum. The lullaby her mother had sung. The one about winter passing, about spring returning, about patience and persistence, and the promise that darkness always, always gave way to light. Warmth bloomed in her fingertips. Not the heat of fire, but the warmth of sun-warmed stone, of afternoon light, of life persistent and stubborn and utterly determined to survive. The frost lily trembled. Alara opened her eyes. The petals were unfurling. Slowly, gracefully, each one opening like a prayer, silver white, glowing from within, until the entire flower was a star-shaped crown of light. Impossible, Isolde breathed. But it wasn't impossible. It was happening. The frost lily bloomed fully, bathing the conservatory in radiance. Other plants responded. Ghost orchids opened. Moonvines pulsed with renewed vigor. The entire space seemed to exhale. Alara pulled her hand back, stared at the flower, at her palm. What did I do? You have the touch. Isolde's voice shook, the gift thought lost. You can speak to the thorn veil, hear it, heal it. I don't understand. Neither do I. Isolde knelt beside her. But Alara, this changes everything. The court will what, sister? Both women spun. Lucian stood in the crystal doorway. He'd shed his armor. Now he wore only a high-collared tunic of midnight blue and trousers of dark leather. Without the steel, he looked more human, and somehow more dangerous. His silver eyes were fixed on the blooming frost lily. On Alara's hand, still glowing faintly with residual warmth, he crossed the conservatory in long strides, stopped a few feet away. It's been 80 years since I saw that flower open, he said quietly. His gaze shifted to Alara. I've tried, every tribute, every visitor. I've begged the thorn veil to respond, to bloom, to remember what it was before the curse. He crouched beside the flower, reached out. His hand hovered an inch from the petals, but he didn't touch it. My touch is too cold now, he murmured. If I reach for it, it will freeze, shatter. My soul is too heavy for delicate things. His eyes met Alara's, silver meeting moss green. But you carry something the thorn veil hasn't felt in centuries. What? Hope. The word hung between them. Fragile. Impossible. Lucian stood, looked at his sister. Keep her safe, Isolde. The court wakes soon. And when Ravenna sees what she can do. He didn't finish the sentence. He turned to leave. Why did you save me? Alara's voice stopped him. He didn't turn back. But he answered. I recognize the look in your eyes on that altar. The look of someone killed by the world who refuses to stay dead. He paused in the doorway. I've worn that look for 300 years. He vanished into the shadows of the corridor. Alara stared at the space where he'd been. Her heart was racing. Not from fear, from something else entirely. Isolde placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. Welcome to Obsidian Keep, Alara Ashcroft, where the dead learn to live and the living learn what they're truly capable of. The frost lily pulsed with light, a beacon in the darkness. And deep in the stone heart of the keep, something ancient stirred. The Thornvale was waking, and it was listening. The days in Obsidian Keep didn't follow normal rhythms. There was no sunrise to mark beginnings, no sunset to signal endings, only the gradual shift of bioluminescent moss from violet to indigo to pearl. Time became fluid, measured not in hours, but in heartbeats, in the slow unfurling of impossible flowers, in the spaces between words spoken in corridors that remembered centuries. Ilara learned to navigate by feeling instead of sight. She learned that the east wing hummed with a subsonic vibration, that the crystal conservatory grew warmer when she entered, that certain hallways whispered with voices from the past, echoes trapped in stone, playing on repeat for anyone patient enough to listen. And she learned that silence, the thing that had made her powerless in Ashford, made her powerful here. On the third day, Isolde brought her to the healing chambers. They descended deeper into the keep than Alara had ventured before, past the grand halls and ornate galleries, down staircases carved into living rock, into the belly of the mountain itself. The healing chambers were cavernous, lit by floating orbs of pale green light that drifted like jellyfish through still water. The air smelled of copper and sage and something older. Desperation, maybe, or resignation. Beds lined the walls, not ornate like the one in Alara's room. These were simple, functional, and occupied. Vampires lay in them, dozens of them, some restless, thrashing against invisible enemies, others perfectly still, eyes open but unseeing, all of them trapped in their own private hells. War veterans, Isolde explained. Her voice was soft, reverent. From the crimson conflicts 2 centuries ago, their bodies healed, their minds did not. Alara moved closer to the nearest bed. A male vampire. He looked young, maybe 30 when he'd been turned, but his eyes were ancient, haunted. He stared at the ceiling, unblinking. His lips moved soundlessly, forming words over and over. What's he saying? We don't know. He hasn't spoken aloud in 90 years. Isolde stood at the foot of the bed. We've tried everything. Blood therapy, memory suppression. Nothing works. The trauma is too deep. Ilara reached out, placed her hand on the vampire's. His skin was cold, rigid as marble. But beneath it, she felt that same pulse, that stubborn insistence of existence. She closed her eyes, let herself sink into the feeling. And suddenly she could hear him. Not his voice, his emotions. Terror, thick and choking. The memory of being buried alive. Dirt filling his mouth. Lungs screaming for air that wouldn't come. Clawing upward, breaking through soil. Emerging into a world that no longer recognized him as human. You're safe, Alara whispered. She didn't know if he could hear. Didn't matter. She said it anyway. Whatever happened, it's over. You're here, you survived. She began to hum, the same lullaby she'd sung to the frost lily. Low, steady, a rhythm that matched the slow beat of his undead heart. The vampire's fingers twitched. His eyes blinked. And then, for the first time in 90 years, he closed them. His breathing, unnecessary but habitual, evened out, deepened. His face smoothed. The lines of perpetual terror faded. He slept. Isolde gasped. How did you? I don't know. Alara pulled her hand back, stared at her palm as if it belonged to someone else. I just felt what he felt, and I reminded him he wasn't there anymore. The empathy gift. Isolde's voice was barely a breath. It's real. You don't just speak to the Thornvale. You speak to souls. They spent the next week in the healing chambers. Alara moved from bed to bed, listened to the silent screams, felt the ancient wounds, and one by one she brought peace. A female vampire who'd lost her entire clan. Alara held her hand and whispered that it was okay to grieve. That survival wasn't betrayal. A soldier who'd been forced to kill his own brother. Alara sat with him for hours, saying nothing, just being present until the guilt loosened its grip. An elder who'd watched his human family age and die while he remained unchanged. Alara reminded him that love didn't require presence. That memory was its own kind of immortality. Word spread through the court, the mortal girl who could heal what medicine couldn't touch. Some came to watch, curious, skeptical. Others came to sneer. Ravenna Crimson was among the latter. She swept into the healing chambers on the 7th day, a vision in blood-red silk, tall, stunning, with hair the color of dried wine and eyes like burning coals. So this is the miracle worker. Her voice dripped honey and poison in equal measure. The little mortal who thinks she can mend broken immortals. Alara didn't look up from the vampire she was tending, an elderly woman who'd been catatonic for a century. I'm just listening to them, Listening, Ravenna laughed. Sharp, cutting. How quaint. Tell me, pet, do they whisper secrets? Confess their sins? They tell me what hurts. And you fix it? Just like that? Ravenna circled Alara like a predator assessing prey. How very convenient. A girl appears from nowhere, claims magical powers, and suddenly she's indispensable. Alara finally met her gaze. I didn't claim anything. I didn't ask to be here. No, you were dragged here, rescued. Ravenna's lip curled. Tell me, did you plan it? The helpless act on the altar? Did you know Lucian has a weakness for broken things? I didn't plan to be betrayed by the man I loved. Love. Ravenna leaned close. Her breath smelled of roses and iron. You don't know what that word means. You're a child playing dress-up in a world that will devour you the moment Lucian loses interest. She straightened, smoothed her gown. Enjoy your little healing sessions, pet, but remember, novelty fades. And when it does, you'll discover that monsters don't keep pets. They consume them. She left in a swirl of crimson silk and malice. Isolde appeared from the shadows. Don't listen to her. She's threatened. Why, I'm nobody. That's exactly why. Isolde's expression was sad. Ravenna has spent 2 centuries trying to matter to Lucian, trying to be essential, and you walked in and became interesting in 3 days. I'm not trying to, I know. Isolde placed a hand on Alara's shoulder. But intention doesn't matter here. Impact does. And you, little mortal, are making waves in a very still pond. On the 10th day, Isolde took Alara to her private quarters. The room was smaller than Alara expected. Warm, lived in, books stacked on every surface, dried herbs hanging from the ceiling, a fireplace that crackled with green-tinged flames. Sit. Isolde poured 2 cups of tea. We need to talk. Alara sat, accepted the cup. The tea smelled of mint and something floral, calming. You've been asking questions, Isolde said, about the curse, about why we're here. Everyone avoids the topic, because it's painful. Isolde stared into her cup. 300 years is a long time to carry guilt. What happened? Isolde was silent for a long moment. Then she began. We were human once, Lucian and I. We had a village. Ashdale it was called. Small, peaceful. Our parents were healers. They taught us their trade. She paused, sipped her tea. The plague came in winter, a sickness that turned blood black, that made bones brittle as glass. It killed half the village in a month. Our parents first, then the children, the elderly. Her hands trembled. Tea sloshed over the rim of her cup. Lucian was 28, I was 22. We tried everything, every remedy, every prayer. Nothing worked. People kept dying. And then someone offered a solution. Morvana, Isolde's voice went flat. The Crimson Witch. She lived in the mountains, practiced old magic, forbidden magic, but she could stop the plague, for a price. What price? Our humanity. Isolde set down her cup. She said she could bind the sickness, prevent it from spreading beyond Ashdale, but someone had to anchor the spell. Someone had to become immortal, to carry the weight of the magic for eternity. Alara's chest tightened. Lucian volunteered. He didn't volunteer. Isolde's eyes were wet. I begged him. I was terrified of dying, of the pain, of the darkness. I cried and screamed and told him I didn't want to leave, that I wasn't ready. A tear slipped down her cheek. So he made the deal, became the anchor, became immortal. But the curse had conditions. Morvana loved him, you see, had loved him for years. When he rejected her, she added her own price. He would live forever alone. Worse, he would live forever able to love, but unable to keep it. Isolde wiped her eyes. The curse stated, you will know warmth, but never hold it. You will see light, but never touch it. Only when a willing heart with moonblood chooses your darkness over the world's light will you be free. Moonblood? A genetic marker. Rare. 1 in 10,000. It makes the blood compatible with the magic, capable of breaking the binding. Alara's pulse quickened. And you? How did you become immortal? I chose it. Isolde's voice broke. After the plague ended, Morvana offered the same gift to anyone who wanted it. Immortality, power. I was so afraid of death after watching it take everyone I loved. So I said yes. She looked at Alara with desperate eyes. Lucian never had a choice. The curse was forced on him to save me, to save everyone. But I chose this, and I've regretted it every single day for 300 years. Alara reached across the table, took Isolde's hand. You were scared. You were young. You're allowed to have been afraid, but Lucian paid the price for my fear. And he'd pay it again. Alara squeezed her hand, because that's what love does. It carries the weight so others don't have to. Isolde sobbed, a broken, ancient sound. Alara held her hand until the crying stopped. The 11th day brought a new visitor to the healing chambers. K.L. Ironfang, the court's general, a mountain of a man with a scarred face and eyes like storm clouds. He'd been watching Alara from a distance since her arrival. Suspicious, cautious. Now he stood at the entrance to the chambers, waiting. Alara finished with her current patient, approached him. "Can I help you?" "Maybe." His voice was gravel. "Maybe you can't, but Isolde says you listen to broken things." "I try." "I'm not broken." He crossed his arms, defensive. "I'm just stuck." "On what?" "A memory." He looked away. "My daughter, Freya. She was 7 when the plague came. I held her while she died. Felt her get cold. Heard her last breath." His jaw clenched. "I became immortal thinking I'd forget. That time would dull it, but it hasn't. Every day for 200 years I remember, and I can't move past it." Alara gestured to a chair. "Sit with me." They sat in silence for a long time. Alara didn't push, didn't probe, just sat. Finally, Kael spoke. "You remind me of her. Freya. She was quiet too, watched everything, missed nothing." "What was she like?" "Stubborn, a ghost of a smile. She'd stand up to anyone. Didn't matter if they were twice her size. If something wasn't fair, she'd say so." "She sounds brave." "She was." His voice cracked. "And I couldn't save her." "You did save her." Alara looked at him. "You held her. You stayed. You made sure she wasn't alone. That's saving, Kael. That's love." He was quiet. Then slowly he nodded. "Thank you." When he left, his shoulders were lighter, not healed, but heard. And Alara understood something fundamental. Her power wasn't magic, it was presence. It was the willingness to sit with pain without trying to fix it, to witness without judgment. It was the gift of being seen. Ravens began arriving on the 13th day, blackbirds with eyes too intelligent to be natural. They perched on the battlements, scratched at windows, left parchment scrolls tied to their legs. Isolde brought the first message to Alara. "It's from Ashford, from Theron Blackwood." Alara's hands shook as she unrolled the parchment. "Alara, I know you're alive. I know the monster took you. The village is forming a delegation. The Holy Order is involved. We're coming for you. Don't be afraid. I'll save you." She laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. "Save me. He thinks he's the hero." "There's more." Isolde handed her a second scroll, from the Order itself. This one was official, stamped with a seal, written in formal script. "To the Shadowvale King, return the girl Ilara Ashcroft. She is a citizen of Ashford, taken without consent. Her betrothed demands her release. Failure to comply will result in military action. You have until the Silver Solstice to respond." Alara looked at Isolde. "When is the Silver Solstice?" 5 days from now." "What happens if Lucian doesn't respond?" "War." Isolde's expression was grim. "The Holy Order has iron weapons, witch-forged relics. They know our weaknesses. And if they breach the keep—" She didn't finish. "I'll leave." Alara stood. "I'll go back. Tell them I'm fine, that I wasn't taken. That will stop it." "You think Theron will accept that?" Isolde's laugh was sad. "He's not coming to save you, Alara. He's coming to kill Lucian and claim the Shadowvale. You're just the excuse." "Then what do? We prepare." Isolde took the scrolls. "And we hope my brother doesn't do something stupid to protect someone who doesn't want his protection." On the 15th night, Alara couldn't sleep. She wandered the corridors, found herself drawn to the great library. It was massive, a cathedral of knowledge. Shelves rose 3 stories high, crammed with books and scrolls and tablets covered in languages Alara didn't recognize. Ladders on rails allowed access to the upper levels. The ceiling was glass, showing the perpetual twilight sky. She was reaching for a leather-bound volume when a voice stopped her. "You have a talent for seeking things beyond your reach." She spun. Lucian stood in the shadows between shelves. He'd shed his formal attire, wore only black trousers and a simple tunic. His hair was slightly disheveled, his crown absent. He looked almost human. Almost. "I couldn't sleep," Alara said. "Neither could I." He stepped into the lamplight. 300 years, and I still haven't mastered it. "Sleep? Peace." He moved to the window, stared out at the mountains. I heard about the ravens, about Theron's threats. I'll go back. I'll tell them I'm safe. You think that will stop him? Lucian's voice was soft, dangerous. He doesn't want you back, Ilara. He wants glory. He wants to be the man who slayed a monster and saved his love. Then let me talk to him. Let me. What I? Lucian turned, his silver eyes pinned her. Why do you hide? In my world, the weak are slaughtered. In yours, they're simply taught to disappear. The question hit like a physical blow. It's easier, Ilara whispered, to be unseen. People don't expect things from you if they don't notice you're there. And yet he saw you. Lucian stepped closer. The man who left you. He saw enough to know you were valuable enough to trade. The mention of Theron felt like a knife between her ribs. Alara's eyes burned. He said I was his sanctuary. He said... He lied. Lucian interrupted. His voice dropped, became gentle in a way that made her chest ache. Look at me, Ilara. It was a command she couldn't refuse. She lifted her head. His eyes held hers. Silver meeting moss green. Storm meeting forest. You're not what they think, he said slowly. Not empty, not void. You're the storm I see forming. And when it breaks, the world will have no choice but to listen. The air between them vibrated, alive, electric. Lucian's hand rose. His fingers hovered inches from her face, close enough to feel the cold radiating from his skin, not close enough to touch. You carry something they've never bothered to look for, he whispered. For one impossible moment, Ilara thought he might close the distance, might touch her cheek, might prove that the cold and the warmth could coexist. But the library doors slammed open. Kael burst in, his face grim, armor covered in frost. Lucian, we have a problem. The general's presence shattered the moment like glass. Lucian stepped back, his expression closed, became the mask of a king. Report. The lower pass has been breached. Ashford delegation, 200 armed men. They're carrying iron-forged weapons and Holy Order banners. When? They'll reach the outer gates by dawn. Kael's eyes flicked to Ilara. Theron Blackwood is leading them. He's claiming the girl is a captive, that she's being tortured. Alara's blood went cold. That's insane. I'll go to them. I'll tell them. You'll tell them nothing. Lucian's voice was ice. The moment you step outside these walls, Theron will take you. And whether you protest or not, he'll use you to justify war. So what do we do? Lucian was silent. Then he turned to Kael. How long until the silver solstice? 3 days. Then we use it. Lucian's expression hardened. Send word to all 5 kingdoms. Emergency summit, neutral ground, the solstice hall. We let Ilara speak before the court. Let her prove she's here willingly. And if Theron refuses to accept her word, then he reveals himself for what he is. Lucian looked at Ilara, a liar who traffics in false heroics. Kael nodded, left to make arrangements. Ilara and Lucian stood in the library, alone again, but the moment was gone, replaced by the cold reality of politics and war. I need to tell you something, Lucian said. His voice was quiet, almost vulnerable. About the curse, about why I saved you. Isolde told me, about Morvana, about the Moonblood. Did she tell you that I've spent 80 years searching for it? That I've tested every tribute, every visitor, hoping to find someone compatible? No. Ravenna has it, Moonblood, but the curse requires a willing heart. She chose immortality over me, chose power, so the magic didn't break. He looked at her, really looked. When I saw you on that altar, accepting death with such dignity, I wondered, if maybe you were different, if maybe you'd be willing to choose the darkness. Alara's heart hammered. Am I compatible? Isolde ran the tests while you slept, the first night. Lucian's jaw clenched. You have it, Moonblood. You're the first compatible person I've found in 80 years who didn't choose me for power or immortality. What does that mean? It means if you willingly love me, if you choose this life, this darkness, over the light of your old world. He paused. The curse breaks, and everyone becomes mortal. Yes, vulnerable. Some might die from the shock. Others would welcome it, but it would be their choice. He turned away. I'm telling you this because you deserve to know. What you are, what you could do. Why tell me now? Because in 3 days you're going to stand before 5 kingdoms, and Theron will be there, offering you a way out, a return to normalcy, to sunlight and human life and everything you lost. His voice roughened. And I need you to understand, I won't stop you if you choose him, if you choose to leave. I saved you because I saw myself in you, not because I wanted to trap you in a new cage. He walked to the door, paused. The choice is yours, Alara. It always has been. He left her alone in the library, surrounded by words written by people long dead, by knowledge accumulated over centuries, by the weight of impossible decisions. Alara sank into a chair. 3 days. 3 days to decide if she'd face the man who betrayed her or flee the monster who saved her. 3 days to choose between the light that had ignored her and the darkness that saw her whole. She closed her eyes, and for the first time since the altar, she prayed. Not to gods, not to fate, but to herself, to the storm waiting inside her silence, to the girl who'd survived being sacrificed. Please, she thought, please help me know what's right. The library offered no answers, only the whisper of turning pages in the wind. The next 2 days passed in a blur of preparation. Isolde dressed Alara in a gown of midnight black, silk so dark it seemed to absorb light, but woven through with silver thread that caught the glow of the bioluminescent moss. The bodice was fitted, modest. The skirt flowed like water, and at her throat a choker of silver thorns. It's not decoration, Isolde said as she fastened the clasp. It's protection, a mark that you're under Lucian's shield. No one can harm you without answering to him. Alara looked at her reflection in the polished obsidian mirror. She barely recognized herself. The girl from Ashford was gone, the seamstress who'd mended hems and shelved books and hoped to be noticed. In her place stood someone else, someone with moss-green eyes that didn't flinch, someone whose silence felt like power instead of absence. You look like a queen, Isolde whispered. I feel like an imposter. Good, queens always do. The silver solstice arrived with the changing of the moss, from violet to silver, a luminescence that bathed the keep in ghostly radiance. The solstice hall was a marvel of architecture, carved from a single crystal cavern deep in the mountain. The walls were translucent, capturing and refracting light from 1,000 candles. The floor was polished obsidian, reflective as black water. And overhead, a glass dome showed the perpetual twilight sky. Representatives from 5 kingdoms filled the hall. The Bloodwood Court, the Ashen Circle, the Moonfen Collective, the Crimson Conclave, and Lucian's own Shadow Veil. 200 vampires, all ancient, all powerful, all watching Alara with predatory interest. She entered on Isolde's arm, walked down the center aisle, felt every eye track her movement. At the far end, on a dais of carved stone, sat 5 thrones. Lucian occupied the center, dressed in full ceremonial armor, black cloak lined with white fur, silver crown gleaming. He looked every inch the immortal king. His eyes found hers, held, and in them she saw something unexpected. Fear, not for himself, for her. Ravenna stood to the side, draped in crimson. Her expression was molten fury, barely contained. Chaol flanked Lucian's right, armed, ready, and at the entrance, escorted by guards, stood Theron Blackwood. He wore white, pristine, holy order symbols embroidered in gold. He looked the part of a righteous hero, handsome, determined, noble. Everything Alara had once believed him to be. He saw her. His eyes widened. He started forward. Alara, thank God, I thought. Stay where you are. Lucian's voice cut across the hall. This is neutral ground. You will speak when addressed. Theron's jaw clenched, but he stopped. Elder Ashton, representing Ashford, stepped forward. We demand the return of Alara Ashcroft. She was taken without consent, held captive. She was offered as tribute, Lucian said. His tone was glacial. By her own village, by her own betrothed. Under duress. Was she? Lucian looked at Alara. Did anyone force you to volunteer? The hall went silent, every eye on her. Alara's mouth went dry. This was it, the moment of truth. She could lie, say she was coerced, return to Ashford, to sunlight, to humanity, or she could speak, really speak, for the first time in her life. She stepped forward, away from Isolde, alone in the center of the hall. No one forced me, she said, her voice carried, clear, steady. I volunteered because I was told it would save my village, that my sacrifice would matter. There, Theron pointed. She admits it. She was manipulated. I wasn't finished. Alara's eyes found his. You manipulated me, Theron. You told me you loved me, that we'd marry, that volunteering would give you power to bring me home. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. But you never loved me. You loved what I represented. A quiet girl who wouldn't question, who wouldn't fight, who'd disappear when convenient. Elara, please. You tied the ropes yourself. Her voice broke, then strengthened. You left me on that altar to freeze. And when the Shadow Veil King showed me mercy, when he gave me a choice, you decided I needed saving. She looked at the assembled court. I have been in Obsidian Keep for 18 days. In that time, no one has harmed me. No one has imprisoned me. I have been given a room, clothes, purpose. I have healed the wounded, tended the gardens, been seen and heard and valued. She turned to Lucian. You ask if I was taken without consent. I say this. I was sacrificed by my village, betrayed by my betrothed, and rescued by a king who owed me nothing. Her eyes swept the hall. If that is captivity, then I choose to remain captive. Silence. Then Ravenna laughed, sharp, cutting. How touching. The pet has learned to speak. She descended from the dais, circled Elara like a shark. Tell me, little bird, do you truly think you belong here? Among those who have seen empires rise and fall? I don't belong anywhere, Elara met her gaze. But at least here, I'm allowed to exist. Exist. Ravenna's smile was cruel. Is that what we're calling it? Tell the court, pet. Has the king touched you, kissed you, made promises in the dark? That's enough, Ravenna. Lucian's voice was ice. Is it? Ravenna whirled on him. Or does the court deserve to know why you're so protective? Why this particular mortal matters? She looked at the assembled vampires. Because she has moon blood. Because this fragile, breakable girl is the key to breaking our immortality. Gasps, whispers, fear rippling through the hall. If she chooses him, Ravenna continued, if she claims to love the darkness, the curse shatters. We all become mortal, vulnerable, weak. The hall erupted, shouts, accusations, demands, and through it all, Theron's voice cut clear. See, I told you, she's bewitched. She doesn't know what she's saying. He lunged forward, broke past the guards, grabbed Elara's arm. I'm taking you home, where you belong. Lucian moved, faster than human eyes could track. One moment on the throne, the next between Theron and Elara, his hand locked around Theron's wrist, squeezed, bone cracked. Theron screamed, dropped to his knees. You will not, Lucian said, each word precise as a blade. Touch her again. He released Theron, turned to the court. The girl stays, by her own choice. Anyone who challenges this challenges me. No one moved. Lucian looked at Elder Ashton. Take your delegation. Return to Ashford. Elara Ashcroft is no longer your concern. You're making a mistake, Theron gasped, cradling his broken wrist. She's bewitched. She's choosing, Elara's voice rang out. I'm choosing, Theron, something you never let me do. She stepped closer to Lucian, not touching, but close enough to make her allegiance clear. I choose to stay. Theron's face twisted, rage replacing the righteous mask. Fine, stay with your monster, but when this kingdom falls, when he tires of you, you'll have nothing to come back to. He turned, stormed out. The guards escorted Elder Ashton and the Ashford delegation after him. The hall remained silent. Then Kael stepped forward, knelt before Elara. You have my loyalty, Lady Ashcroft. One by one, other vampires knelt. Not all. Ravenna remained standing, her fury palpable. But enough to show that Elara's choice mattered, that her voice carried weight. Lucian turned to her. In his eyes, she saw relief, gratitude, and something deeper, something that made her heart stutter. Thank you, he whispered, so soft only she could hear. Don't thank me yet, she whispered back. We still have to survive what comes next. Because she knew. Theron wouldn't accept this. Men like him never did. And the storm she'd chosen to walk into was only beginning. But as she stood in the Solstice Hall, surrounded by immortals, wearing a gown of starlight and thorns, with a king's protection and her own voice finally free, Elara realized something fundamental. She'd rather face the storm than hide from it. She'd rather be seen and hunted than unseen and safe. And if that made her a fool, then she'd be a fool who chose her own path. The moss overhead shifted from silver to violet. The solstice ended, and the real battle began. The alarm bells began at midnight, not the gentle chimes that marked the hours in Obsidian Keep. These were war bells, forged from iron and blessed with ancient magic. Their sound was a physical thing, a pressure wave that made the walls tremble and the bioluminescent moss flicker like dying stars. Elara jolted awake. Her room, so peaceful moments before, now felt like a trap. She threw on the green gown Isolde had given her, fumbled with the laces. Her hands shook. The door burst open. Kale stood in the threshold, fully armored, sword drawn, his face grim as granite. They're here, Theron's army, 200 strong, witch-forged weapons, iron catapults. He grabbed her arm. Lucian wants you in the inner sanctum, now. I won't hide while you're not hiding, you're staying alive. He pulled her into the corridor. If they take you, this was all for nothing. They ran through twisting passages, past windows that showed the outer courtyard ablaze with an orange light, fire arrows arcing through the twilight sky like falling stars. The impact of stones against the keep's walls sent tremors through the floor. Screams echoed, metal on metal, the wet sound of blades finding flesh. War had come to the Shadow Vale, and Alara knew with terrible certainty that this was her fault. Kyle led her deeper, down staircases she'd never seen, into the mountain's heart. The air grew colder, heavier, thick with ancient magic that made her skin prickle. They reached a pair of doors carved from solid obsidian. Runes glowed violet along the edges. Moonstone Sanctum, Kale said. Safest place in the keep. Only Lucian and the royal bloodline can enter. Then how do I... He pressed her palm against the door. The runes flared, recognized something in her blood. Something compatible. The door swung open. Stay here. Lock it from the inside. Don't open for anyone except... An explosion rocked the keep. Stone dust rained from the ceiling. Kale's eyes went wide. They breached the outer wall. He shoved her through the doorway. He ran back the way they'd come. Sword raised, roaring orders. Alara stumbled into the sanctum. The doors slammed shut behind her, locked with a sound like a tomb ceiling. She was alone. The sanctum was circular, vast. The walls were polished obsidian that reflected distorted versions of herself. And in the center, suspended in a cage of violet light, floated the moonstone heart. It was beautiful, a crystal the size of a human heart, multifaceted, pulsing with inner luminescence that shifted from silver to violet to deep crimson. Each pulse synchronized with a subsonic vibration she felt in her chest. This was the anchor of the curse, the source of immortality, the prison that had held Lucian and his people for 300 years. Alara approached slowly. The air around the moonstone crackled. Magic so old, it predated language. She reached out. Her fingers passed through the violet cage. No resistance. The magic recognized her. Moonblood. She could touch it, could take it, could shatter it, and end the curse with one blow. But what would that cost? How many would die in the transition from immortal to mortal? Step away from the heart, little bird. Alara spun. Ravenna Crimson stood in the shadows near the entrance. How she'd entered, Alara didn't know. But she was here, and she was furious. How did you get in? The doors. I've walked these halls for 2 centuries. Ravenna's smile was vicious. I know every secret passage, every hidden way, including the ones Lucian thinks only he knows. She moved closer. Her crimson gown seemed to absorb the violet light, turning it the color of fresh blood. You've been here less than 3 weeks and already you're in the sanctum. Already you have access to the one thing that could destroy us all. I don't want to destroy anyone. Liar. Ravenna's hand shot out, grabbed Alara's throat, slammed her against the obsidian wall. Alara's vision sparked. Her lungs screamed. You want to be the hero, Ravenna hissed. The little mortal who saved the monsters from themselves, who gave them mortality so they could be grateful, so Lucian would worship you for your sacrifice. She squeezed harder. But I won't let you strip me of my immortality. I've been powerful for 200 years. I've survived plagues and wars and the endless tedium of existence. I won't go back to being weak. Breakable. Human. Black spots danced in Alara's vision. I was right there, Ravenna continued, her face inches away. 80 years ago, I stood where you're standing. I had moonblood. I had Lucian's attention. All I had to do was choose him over immortality. Her eyes burned with ancient rage. But I couldn't, because I knew what loving him meant. Becoming mortal, growing old, while everyone I'd known for centuries continued on. I couldn't bear it. So you chose power, Alara gasped. I chose survival. Ravenna released her throat. Alara collapsed, sucked in air. And you think you're braver than me? You think your love is purer? She pulled a dagger from her gown. Not silver, not iron, black glass that seemed to drink light. If I kill you before you choose him, before you willingly accept the darkness, the curse stays intact. Moonblood or not, you need to speak the words. Make the choice. and dead girls don't speak. She raised the dagger. The sanctum doors exploded inward. Isolde stood in the threshold, her healer's gown torn, blood on her hands, her eyes blazing with protective fury. Get away from her, Ravenna. Make me. Isolde's hands glowed green. Ghost orchid essence. The same substance she'd used in the healing chambers, but concentrated, weaponized. I've known you for 200 years, Isolde said. Her voice was steel. I've watched you seduce, manipulate, and destroy everyone who got close to Lucian, but I won't let you hurt her. Why, because she's special? Ravenna laughed. She's immortal, a temporary distraction. In 50 years, she'll be dust, and Lucian will still be here. Still lonely, still cursed. Maybe, Isolde's hands brightened, or maybe she's the one who will finally give him what you never could. A choice. A real one. Ravenna screamed, lunged. Isolde threw the essence. It hit Ravenna's shoulder, sizzled. The High Lady shrieked, her skin blistered where the liquid touched. To a vampire who'd fed only on darkness for centuries, the concentrated life force was acid. Ravenna clawed at her burning skin, stumbled. Her dagger clattered to the floor. Run, Alara, Isolde shouted. Get to the courtyard. Lucian is falling. Alara didn't think. She grabbed the dagger. Ran. Behind her, she heard the sounds of fighting. Isolde's determined shouts. Ravenna's enraged screams. She prayed Isolde would survive. The keep was chaos. Smoke filled the quarters. Vampires fought in tight clusters against armored mercenaries. Blood, red and black, slicked the obsidian floors. Alara ran, dodged, pressed herself against walls as soldiers thundered past. No one noticed her. She was just another shadow in a castle full of them. She reached the main courtyard and her heart stopped. The outer gates were shattered. Iron spikes driven through the wood like broken ribs. Fire consumed the guard towers. And in the center of the courtyard, surrounded by a ring of Holy Order soldiers, Lucian fought. But he was losing. His armor was dented, torn in places. A gash on his shoulder bled thick black blood. He moved with predatory grace, his obsidian sword cutting through mercenaries like wheat. But for every one he felled, two more took their place. And they had iron weapons. Each wound they inflicted was poison, slowing him, weakening him. Chaol fought at his side, as did a dozen other vampires, but they were outnumbered, overwhelmed. On the ridge above his courtyard, mounted on a white horse, sat Theron Blackwood. He looked resplendent, polished armor, holy symbols gleaming, a banner behind him showing a silver cross wrapped in thorns. He looked like salvation. He looked like the hero of every story, and Alara wanted to scream. Look at your king now! Theron's voice boomed across the courtyard, amplified by magic. A dying beast in a crumbling kennel. He scanned the chaos. His eyes found Alara standing in the archway. His smile was triumphant, cruel. Alara, come out! See what your monster has become. See what your defiance has cost. She should have stayed hidden, should have run back to the sanctum. But Lucian was on his knees now, 3 soldiers holding him down, one raising an iron pike aimed at his heart, and Alara couldn't watch him die. She stepped into the firelight. Stop! Every head turned. The soldier with the pike hesitated. Theron urged his horse forward, down the ridge, into the courtyard. He dismounted with theatrical grace, walked toward her through the swifts and carnage. Thank God. He opened his arms. I thought I'd lost you. Come here, Alara. Let me take you home. I am home. His smile faltered. You're confused, traumatized. But it's over now. We won. The monster is defeated. You're safe. Lucian raised his head. His silver eyes found hers. Blood ran from a cut above his brow. He looked broken, exhausted, and still he shook his head. A silent message. Don't. Save yourself. But Alara was done being saved by others. She pulled the black glass dagger from her sleeve, held it ready. Let him go, Theron, or I swear I'll... Theron laughed. You'll what? Fight me? You're a seamstress. You've never held a weapon in your life. Then this is a good day to start. His amusement died. Fine, you want to play the defiant heroine? Let me show you what your choices have cost. He gestured to the ridge. More soldiers appeared, dragging prisoners, vampires in chains, wounded, beaten. And among them, Isolde. Her green gown was shredded, her face bruised, but her eyes were fierce. We have 24 of his court, Theron said, including his precious sister. Surrender now, monster, and I'll let them live. Fight, and I'll slaughter them all. Lucian's face went pale. Let them go. This is between us. No, Theron turned to Alara. This is between you and me. It always has been. He stepped closer. Too close. I gave you everything, Alara. My name, my protection, a future. And you spat on it. Chose a creature over me. You gave me nothing but lies. I gave you purpose. His mask cracked, the hero facade crumbling, revealing the rot beneath. You were nothing in Ashford, a ghost. I made you matter by choosing you as tribute. I gave you significance. You gave me to a monster to save your own skin. And that monster should have killed you. Theron's control shattered. He should have drained you and discarded you like every other tribute before. But instead he kept you, made you important, made you think you're special. He grabbed her arm, yanked her close. You're not special, Alara. You're a tool, a means to an end. And I'm going to use you to claim what's rightfully mine. Alara tried to pull away. What are you talking about? Did Lucian tell you? Theron's grin was manic. About Morvana? About the witch who cursed him? He said she loved him, that he rejected her. She was my great-great-great-grandmother. Theron's eyes blazed. The Crimson Witch, the most powerful sorceress the Shadow Vale ever saw. And your precious king spurned her, humiliated her, chose his humanity over her devotion. Ice crawled up Alara's spine. So she cursed him, made him immortal but alone, and she made a promise to her bloodline that one day one of her descendants would claim the Shadow Vale, would kill the king and inherit his power. He pulled her closer, his breath hot on her face. That's me, Alara. I'm the heir to Morvana's magic, and your moonblood is the key. When I kill Lucian with you as witness, when I claim the throne over his corpse, the curse transfers. I become immortal. I become the Shadow Vale King. You're insane. I'm destiny. He threw her toward the center of the courtyard. She stumbled, fell. Theron drew a sword, not iron, not silver, black glass like the dagger, etched with runes that glowed crimson. Morvana's fang, the blade that can kill an immortal. She forged it for this exact purpose. He walked toward Lucian. The soldiers parted, gave him space. Lucian tried to rise. Couldn't. The iron wounds had taken too much. Any last words, monster? Lucian looked past Theron, at Alara. I'm sorry, he said. His voice was soft, broken. I should have let you go. Should have kept you safe. But I was selfish. I wanted... Don't. Alara scrambled to her feet. Don't you dare apologize for giving me a choice. She looked around the courtyard, at the soldiers, the prisoners, the keep burning, and she understood. Theron wanted a witness, wanted her to watch, to break her, but he'd made a mistake. He'd assumed she was still the quiet girl, the one who hid, who disappeared. He didn't know about the storm. Alara reached into her pocket, pulled out a handful of dried Thornvale thorns, the ones Isolde had taught her to harvest, for healing. But like all medicine, they could poison in the right dose. She threw them. The thorns hit the nearest soldiers, stuck in exposed necks, gaps in armor. The men's eyes went wide, their limbs locked. They collapsed, paralyzed. Chaos erupted. Alara ran, not away, toward Lucian. She dropped to her knees beside him, pulled him upright. He was heavy, cold but alive. What are you doing? He gasped. Saving you. She wrapped her arms around him, shielded him with her own body. Because you saved me first. Alara, no! Theron roared, raised the black blade, aimed for both of them. Kill him! He screamed at his soldiers. Kill them both! 12 archers raised their bows, iron-tipped arrows knocked. Aimed. This was it, the end. Alara closed her eyes, pressed her forehead to Lucian's. I choose you, she whispered. I choose this. The darkness. The shadows. All of it. I'm willing. I love you, Lucian breathed. God help me, I love you. Their lips met, not a gentle kiss, not hesitant, desperate, drowning. Two people reaching for each other in the dark. And the world exploded. The archers released their strings. 12 arrows flew. Time stopped. Not metaphorically, literally stopped. The arrows hung in midair, frozen. The soldiers were statues. The fire didn't flicker. Even Theron was caught, 1 foot forward, sword raised, face twisted in rage, completely still. From the keep's highest tower, the moonstone heart rose. It floated above the courtyard. Massive, pulsing, no longer confined to the sanctum's violet cage. The curse was responding. White gold light radiated from the heart, brighter than any sun Alara had seen. It washed over the courtyard in waves, each wave carrying a sound, a voice, ancient, feminine, Morvana's voice, echoing from 3 centuries past. The willing heart has chosen. The moonblood has spoken. The curse is broken. The light intensified, became blinding. Alara felt it enter her, warm, electric. It flowed from her into Lucian, connected them, bound them. And then it expanded, touched every vampire in the courtyard, in the keep, in the entire Shadow Vale. Each one heard the same message. Choose immortality without love, or mortality with the freedom to truly live. The curse no longer commands. You decide. The light faded, time resumed. The arrows disintegrated, turned to ash before they could strike. The iron weapons shattered, crumbled to rust, and across the Shadow Vale, vampires fell to their knees. Not in pain, in relief. The hunger was gone. The endless, gnawing, soul-deep hunger that had defined 300 years of existence simply ended. Lucian gasped. His skin, which had been marble pale, flushed. Pink crept into his cheeks. His chest rose and fell in deep, shuddering breaths he didn't need but suddenly wanted. "I'm warm," he whispered, wonder in his voice. "I can feel warmth." The wounds on his shoulder closed, not instantly, but healing at a human pace, natural, real. Around the courtyard, other vampires were experiencing the same miracle. Kale stared at his hands, flexed his fingers, laughed, a sound of pure disbelief. Isolde was crying, touching her face, feeling tears that actually fell instead of turning to blood. And Theron stood in the center of it all, alone, confused. What? What did you do?" Lucian rose, pulled Alara to her feet. He was still weak, still wounded, but standing. "She gave us a choice," Lucian said. "Something your ancestor never could. Morvana wanted to trap us, keep us dependent on the curse, but Alara freed us." "No," Theron's face twisted. "No, this isn't how it works. You're supposed to die. I'm supposed to inherit." He raised Morvana's fang. The runes had stopped glowing. The blade was just glass now, powerless. He swung anyway, desperate, wild. Lucian caught his wrist, easily, without effort. "Your ancestor's curse is broken. Her magic is gone. You have no claim here." "I am the heir," Theron screamed, spittle flying. "I am Morvana's blood. This is my destiny." The ground beneath him trembled. Roots erupted from the cobblestones, black, twisted, covered in thorns. The thorn veil itself responding. Not to Theron, to Alara. She stood with one hand extended, eyes closed, listening to the language Isolde had taught her, the pulse, the rhythm, the patient ache of life that persisted beneath stone and snow. And the thorn veil heard her. The roots coiled around Theron's legs, climbed, wrapped his waist, his chest. He dropped the sword, clawed at the roots. "No, get off, get—" The earth opened. A chasm yawned beneath him, deep, endless, glowing with crimson light from far below. And from that light, a figure materialized. Morvana, not flesh, not fully formed. A ghost, an echo, a fragment of will that had clung to the curse for 3 centuries. She looked at Theron. Her expression was disappointment incarnate. "You failed." Her voice was wind through dead branches. "You were meant to kill the king. Claim the power. Continue my work." "I tried. You lost to a mortal girl." Morvana's form flickered. "You are unworthy of my blood, unworthy of my magic." She reached out. Ghostly hands gripped Theron's shoulders. "You will live forever as you wished, but not as a king, as a prisoner. You will feel every moment, hear the world above, but never touch it, never change, never escape. Please, grandmother, please." The roots yanked him down, into the chasm. His screams echoed, faded. The earth closed, smooth, unmarked, as if it had never opened. Morvana's ghost turned to Lucian, to Alara. "You broke my curse, freed my victims." Her smile was bitter. "I hated you for 300 years, Lucian Nightshade, but this girl, she gave you what I never could." "What?" Lucian's voice was hoarse. "A choice that didn't cost your soul." Morvana's form began to dissolve. Love freely given, not demanded, not bound by magic or manipulation, just offered. She looked at Alara. "Guard him well, child. Men who have lived in darkness forget how precious light is." She vanished. The crimson glow faded. Silence fell over the courtyard. Slowly, the remaining soldiers dropped their weapons. They'd come for glory, for divine purpose, for a hero's quest. But their hero was gone, and the monsters they'd come to slay were choosing to be human. Elder Ashton stepped forward. His face was gray, shocked. What do we tell Ashford?" Tell them the truth, Lucian said. His voice was tired, but steady. Tell them the Shadow Veil King is dead. The immortal is gone. And in his place stands a man who chooses to live what life remains to him in peace. He looked at Alara. If she'll have me. Alara took his hand, laced their fingers together. I already chose. Kale approached, knelt, not in submission, in respect. My king, we await your orders. I'm not a king anymore. Lucian helped him stand. I'm just Lucian, and I release you, all of you, from oaths, from service. You're free to go, to stay, to choose your own paths. Around the courtyard, vampires who'd chosen mortality stood. Some were crying, others laughing. A few looked terrified, but all of them were free. Isolde limped over, her wounds healing slowly, humanly. So what now, brother? Lucian looked at the keep. The fires were dying, the damage extensive but not catastrophic. Now we rebuild, not a kingdom, a sanctuary, for anyone who needs it, mortal or otherwise. He turned to Elder Ashton. Ashford and the Shadow Vale will have peace. True peace. No more tributes, no more fear, just trade, communication, neighborly existence. And Theron, what do we tell his family? Tell them he chose his destiny, and the earth claimed him for it. Elder Ashton nodded, led his soldiers away. They left their weapons, their banners, walked out of the shattered gates like men waking from a nightmare. The courtyard emptied, slowly. Vampires dispersing to tend wounds, to process, to grieve or celebrate depending on their choice. Soon only Alara and Lucian remained, standing in the center of the carnage, holding hands, alive. I'm sorry, Lucian said, about Theron. I know you loved him once. I loved who I thought he was. Alara looked at the place where the earth had swallowed him. The real Theron died the moment he chose ambition over me. What went into the ground was just consequences. Still, it's a hard thing, watching someone fall. Harder watching someone I love almost die. She touched his face. His skin was warm now, flushed, human. Don't do that again. I'll try. He kissed her palm. No promises. I'm very new at being mortal. Might forget I can actually die now. She laughed, exhausted, relieved. We'll figure it out together. Together. He tested the word, smiled. I like that. The moss overhead shifted, from violet to the pale gray of pre-dawn, and for the first time in 300 years, true sunlight crept over the mountains. Lucian froze, stared at the horizon, at the line of gold spreading across the peaks. The curse is truly broken, he breathed. The Shadow Veil is returning to the world. They stood together, watching, as the sun rose fully, bathed the courtyard in light that was warm, real, no longer filtered through eternal twilight. Lucian's eyes filled with tears. They caught the sunlight, turned to diamonds on his lashes. I forgot, he whispered. I forgot how beautiful it was. Alara wrapped her arms around him. He buried his face in her hair and cried, not from pain, from joy, from release, from the overwhelming miracle of feeling warmth on his skin after 3 centuries in shadow. Thank you, he said, over and over. Thank you. You saved me first, she reminded him. No, he pulled back, looked at her. You saved yourself. I just gave you a place to discover you had the strength all along. She kissed him, gentle, soft, a promise that stretched into whatever future they'd build together. So what now, she asked when they parted. Now we live, Lucian said. Really live, for however long we have. The sun climbed higher, painting the mountains in shades of gold and amber. The fires in the courtyard had died to embers. The wounded were being tended. The work of rebuilding had already begun. The coastal village of Silvermere didn't appear on most maps. It was too small, too remote. Just a cluster of houses on a cliff overlooking the sea. Fishermen and farmers and people who valued quiet over glory. Perfect for 2 people learning how to be ordinary. Alara stood at the window of their cottage, small, cozy, with a garden she'd planted herself. Thornvale flowers grew alongside normal herbs, a reminder of where they'd been. She was sewing, not for obligation, but because she enjoyed creating something beautiful from scraps. The door opened. Lucian entered carrying firewood. Thought I'd make stew tonight, he said, dumping the wood by the hearth. That recipe is old as scent. His hair was longer now, slightly shaggy. He looked happy. Alara watched the sunset paint the ocean in shades of rose and gold. I'll never tire of this, Lucian murmured, joining her at the window. watching the day end, knowing another will come. A knock at the door. Kale stood on the porch, grinning, holding a basket. Brought fish. Behind him, Isolde appeared. I brought wine and news. They crowded into the cottage, shared dinner, laughed, built the kind of ordinary evening that felt extraordinary. As they ate, a raven landed on the windowsill. Isolde retrieved its message. Read. Her expression darkened. Ravenna, she's gathering followers, calling herself the Crimson Queen. Silence fell. Then Alara stood, walked to the window. Let her come, she said quietly. We survived Theron. We broke a curse 3 centuries old. Whatever she brings, we'll face it together. Lucian rose, crossed to her, took her hand. Together, he agreed. Outside, the last light faded, night fell, but inside the cottage, warmth, laughter, the simple miracle of people who'd found each other in darkness and chosen to build something in the light. Ilara looked at her reflection in the glass, saw not the girl who'd been sacrificed, but a woman who'd learned to speak, to choose, to fight. They'd said she was too quiet to matter. They'd been wrong, and that was victory enough. She turned from the window, rejoined her chosen family. Tell me about the Shadow Veil, she said to Isolde. How's the rebuilding? And as they talked and planned and simply existed together, one truth settled into Alara's bones. This was what she'd been searching for. Not a kingdom, not power, just this. People who saw her, heard her, valued her. A place where she didn't have to hide, where her voice mattered, where she could simply be. And that was worth everything. The night deepened, the fire crackled, and in a small cottage on the edge of the world, silence was no longer absence. It was peace.